Alrighty, guys. Today we are talking my campaign formula, a general arc for a structure of a role playing campaign. Now, this is probably like the least practical of the formulas I've come up with yet because there are just so many factors and other things that can change how like a campaign is structured and like how it's paced and everything. Like, just internally, if the players make decisions that cause certain like stretches of like certain periods of the campaign arc to be, to like last a long time, or if they make decisions that'll vastly change how, where you currently are, grand scheme, grand narrative wise. And there's also like external factors, like if so and so has to move to Japan in 2 weeks, so you've only got 2 sessions left to wrap up the entire campaign. That can change everything too. Also, I should say this is all like entirely theoretical. Zero, I have zero applied practice with this because I've never actually finished a full campaign. I've only ever, well, I should like finished a campaign that I've run. I've never run like a full campaign because everything I've ever run has always fizzled out halfway through. But I, and also, like, this formula obviously does not need to be like strictly adhered to, but I do think it is useful to have like a general idea in mind as to how you want your campaign to flow. And so, all right, so I'm just gonna walk you through what I have in mind. I'll be using like Vampire the Masquerade as an example. So, start of the campaign, first couple of sessions, maybe the first like mission or quest they go on, they're figuring out their like abilities, they're learning about the world, they're like making a few friends, generally like figuring out that they're cool and powerful and all that. And then at some point, big bad evil guy is revealed. Let's say like Sabat Bishop guy, he just pops out of the window, and then maybe the players have like cool sires or like a cool mentor or some allies that they care about, and maybe they have like a haven or something, and the bishop takes this away from them. The bishop captures their sires or allies or destroys their haven or whatever. They set the players far back, much farther back than they were where they started from. They are now very much so like behind, and they're very much so hindered, and now they have to crawl back up to just to get to where they once were. They're either making new friends, making new allies, gaining resources and contacts. Maybe they're becoming friends with the prince, other people who hate this Sabat bishop, and eventually they get back to like where they started. And then the players are finally able to start trying to like hinder the bishop himself. They're now in a position where they can like start killing the bishop's goons, and now they're like killing the bishop's lieutenants. It's different like priests and Sabat cult stuff, and they're taken away from the bishop until they're in a position where they have like more power than the bishop. So they're like, all right, now we can go ahead, fight him one on one, and we're just going to destroy him. Very high level of hope. The players think they're going to be doing great, and then big like possibly a switcheroo, or the bishop accomplishes his goal. He maybe end times, time of judgment. He has nuclear codes and blows up half the United States, or he awakens an antediluvian, and or zombie apocalypse, and or possibly players beat the bishop successfully, and then they find out, ha 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 ha, the prince has been using you all along, and he's been setting all of this up, and he's the actual big bad evil guy, and now the players have a blood hunt on them, or the players are now in an apocalypse wasteland world. Uh, One way or another, catastrophe, like everything is that could conceivably possibly be going wrong for the players goes wrong for them. They are now in a state of absolute zero hope, where they cannot they cannot fathom a way that they could possibly win. Like everything seems to have been lost. But they continue. They slowly crawl and climb their way, scraping their way back up until they are once again forced to confront this big bad evil guy. Maybe this is now either the possibly the antediluvian, or this is the prince and his sheriff, or this is a demon or whatever. Not necessarily the same big bad evil guy as it was before, but whoever is actively keeping them from the world that they would ideally like to live in. And but this time when they fight the big bad evil guy, it's not like, oh, we've got a ton of hope, we're gonna mess him up, it's not even gonna be close. This time it is like, dear God, this is a 1 in a million. It's almost certain that we're gonna lose, but we have no other option. We have to try this, and maybe by some miracle we can actually beat him. Then I guess you can diverge here. I guess if you were doing a Vampire the Masquerade campaign and you wanted it to be bleak, you could have them win here, and then everything goes terribly anyways, because everything is nihilistic and will always be sad and bad. But you could alternatively have them win, and now they're starting to come back to that world. They've now been given a chance to get what they want and achieve their goals. And I guess if this were a vampire campaign, you would end here, and then you could say ooh, but the cycle will continue, and the jihad is eternal, and you'll be back to bleakness in no time, because that's how the world is. Boo hoo hoo. So that's the general structure. There's a classic, to put it into a movie wise. Now movies, they can get away with having internal, or other stories just in general, non role playing game, they can get away with having internal conflicts, because they usually have a single protagonist who's having to make these decisions and going either one way or the other way. But in a role playing game, for a couple of things that are different, you have multiple protagonists. You have 4 or 5 or however many, but more than one usually. And the big bad evil guy, normally in no real story arc for any book or movie would you ever see straight up antagonist does a thing, because they don't rely on antagonists. They can have that whole inside conflict. But in role-playing games, it's nice to have this externalized as a tangible force that the players can interact with, because everything is explained to the players through dialogue that their characters have. Everything is, they gain all their their information and conflict and everything through their interactions that they have with other people. But this is sort of the man in the hole, double man in the hole, I guess, sort of arc, instead of the sort of classic Freytag's pyramid. It's not, this is kind of that sort of Greek drama, Shakespearean sort of arc, with a little few more steps just stamped out. Now up here, I have this written out for if you were to make the ideal campaign, like if this doesn't happen in practice, but if you were in a situation where you're like, okay, I know I'm going to be meeting with these people every week for the next 35 weeks, and I know that's exactly how much time I'm going to have for this campaign, and this is the general idea as to how I want that campaign to go. So I've just got like the steps written out here. Prologue, first couple of sessions, you're telling people about the world. They're getting an idea as to who their characters are, who the NPCs are, what they want, what their like ultimate goals are as people. And so, these first couple of steps, they get to learn what their goals are and they get to start taking steps towards achieving their goals. And then the big bad evil guy comes out, or a big bad evil guy, not necessarily the big bad evil guy, but they've got like a force to like be reckoned with, and the whole status quo is disrupted. The players, they're feeling good. They've got things look like they're going well for them, and then no longer is that the case. They lose their mentor or their allies, or something happens to them that makes them not like this big bad evil guy. This big bad evil guy prevents the players from achieving their personal goals. So all the players have a vested interest in stopping this guy. So the players are now like lost, and they're like, oh no, what do we do? They have to start building their connections. They have to start building resources and power and all that stuff. Now we're on the... And then once they get back to where they started at, now they can start looking towards, okay, how do we stop this big bad evil guy who's been messing with us? The play and counterplay. The big bad evil guy is sending his minions and goons and lieutenants after the players. The players are dodging him, and they're killing his goons and lieutenants, and it looks like the players are going to be winning this. They seem like they're doing pretty well against the big bad evil guy. Then catastrophe strikes, and the players actually fight the big bad evil guy. Things seem like they're going well. They seem like they're going to win. And then they get the rug pulled out from under them, and the nukes get launched or whatever, and like all hope is lost. Truly, like everything that could go wrong goes wrong. And then recovery, players slowly crawl their way back up, and now this is like for the session wise. You could play with any of these numbers, and honestly, you could have even more. If you wanted to have this go on for 100 sessions, you could possibly even have even more spikes. You could have this, you could have multiple arcs where they go up against multiple big bad evil guys, and this whole scene, this like main big peak plays out multiple times. But I think if you do that too many times, then the players will start getting used to all hope being lost, and then it stops feeling like all hope is being lost. So if you were to do multiple arcs, I would try to keep it to this sort of formula, and then just like either repeat it with like different characters, maybe in the same world, or like you've got to be able to raise the stakes to some degree, and then to have that balancing act without just going full Dragon Ball Z power creep, destroying universes and whatever, can be difficult to manage. So I generally try to stick to the one condensed campaign without just letting it spiral into absurdness. It's a good story. It's a good story. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, not a beginning and then a middle that just flutters off into infinity. That's not a story. That's not how life works, But anyways, I digress. So where were we? Catastrophe, recovery. Players slowly crawl their way back up. They manage to work with what little they have. Everyone else is against them, but they manage to keep fighting. And they finally get another chance to fight the big bad evil guy again. This time, it's very hopeless and woe is me, but they managed to either defeat him or so. I guess if at any point the players lose, then just imagine there's a giant red drop. But I probably would try to avoid getting like 30 sessions into a campaign and then killing off the entire party and then saying they lose, the campaign is over. Like, that would be kind of funny, but probably not very funny for the players, or not very satisfying, not very cathartic. So probably would avoid doing that. But ultimately, the players win, and in this post confrontation new world that they have set up, it's you, like, this is going to be the most satisfying sessions, I imagine, for the player. And the players will probably want to be here the longest, but it's just conflict is the essence of drama. There's not, once they beat the guy, there's not a whole lot you can really do except for just restart the process at this point if you want to do that. So you just use the last session as an opportunity to wrap everything up. Personally, I think the best denouement in any game or anything I've ever played is like Fallout New Vegas, when you beat the game and then it does that Ron Perlman post-credit scene, where, not post-credit but pre-credit scene, I guess, where it like goes through and explains how all the different choices have like what happened because of each of the different players' choices, and how each of the different like factions and or NPCs they've interacted with have ended up in like one different way or another. I've always dreamed about having that sort of a moment with my players, but we'll get there eventually. So yeah, hopefully at some point I get a chance to see this through. But who knows?